top 3 tips for other companies hiring from India?
Platform. India is not a BPO, it's a global hub. And do it fast and do it now.
Yes, so today we have with us Mr. Deep Desai. He has helped various global companies in setting up their tech teams in India while providing the strategic direction to the businesses in market expansion across high tech and government led sectors. Thank you, Deep. Thank you for joining us with us today in our conversation on building tech teams in India.
Well, thanks to you actually for organizing this. It's a great
Completely
platform.
our pleasure. Yeah.
I
So,
hope
so
I
Deep,
can
tell us
contribute.
more on how and why did your journey of hiring from India start?
So see, I'm born and brought up in India. I left India for so-called higher education, and if internet was not invented, people would still assume back home that I'm continuing my higher education. Um, but I was in the UK for about good 12, 13, 14 years, and then moved to Middle East. When I moved to the Middle East, it was pretty apparent to me that my experience in Europe, the workforce that I was engaged with, had a very different element to themselves, had a very different work ethic to themselves, that worked for a certain time, but that dynamic workforce, accountability, innovation, that was somewhere along the line getting, I wouldn't say diminished, but it was diluted over a period of time. Moving to Middle East kind of made me really clear about one fact. As an organization, especially my market was and still is India, but even globally speaking, as an organization, if India as a location is not part of your strategy, you're not future-proofing yourself. That's primarily the driver of why I went hands-on in India.
Okay, and when you say future proofing, what do you exactly mean by that?
Right, future-proofing. So, from a, let's say, business executive or a business owner perspective, my philosophy has always been that as a business, you need to develop something that provides value to masses.
Right.
Today, the sentiment of starting a business is slightly separate. Sometimes it's about quick exit, sometimes it's about something else, but it's always about long-term generational value to an industry that does bigger and better for overall, economy or people in general. So future-proofing angle comes from exactly that perspective. I don't sit here and only think about next 6 months or next 2 years. There has to be a slight 5%, 10% element into more strategy about if we are to achieve what we are to achieve. Do you think this is going to be sustainable for the next decade? And for me, the answer was no. The answer was absolutely because the social environment, the political environment, the age, the pace at which the world is moving on in terms of demanding newer services, newer products, and B, the pace at which a specific company or a specific region is satisfying its needs. Basically, India ticked all of these boxes. On top of that, from a non-Indian business perspective, there was a big cost element.
Right.
Everything comes at a price. Let's say I have software engineers, I have not even software engineers, even bid managers, and so on and so forth. Today, I have a bid manager in India that's managing bids for India, Africa, Southeast Asia, and potentially now he's going to look into Europe. So, ticking all these boxes in terms of skills, workforce, availability, attitude, also local support, having local support of the government, the young populace, all of this comes together, and that's what I mean by future proofing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And when you talk about cost, how much cost advantage one can expect hiring from, say, any other Western country, say US, versus hiring from India?
So, in my experience, I mean, I have set up businesses in UK, Austria, US, India, and US has been the most recent one. But if I now take a step back and average the cost out in US dollars, the way I look at it overall is anywhere between 3.5x to 4x. That's the cost saving for like by like skill sets. But as a business, it's not just about skill sets. Like I said, if you really want to future proof, you need to treat India as a base, not as a BPO, right?
Hmm.
Now, if you're treating it as a base, you have office cost, setup cost, so the KPIs that we've always followed, and especially in my business planning has come into places your CTC, which is again you can say like by like, and then you have the O&M cost of any business, and the third and the most critical thing is USD per square feet. Now, USD per square feet is interesting because this encompasses a lot of things. So, 1,000 square feet office in India for 50 people, or a 1,000 square feet office in US for 50 people, that USD per square feet almost balances out to 4x, 5x in India
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
pretty much same, if not better quality in every aspect. And
Hmm.
that's the huge direct huge cost savings I have seen in the last 6 years that I've been dealing with India. Indirect
Hmm.
cost savings are it's just very complicated. Like how do I justify, or how do I put numbers in terms of economy, the pace of the economy, the market growth, the market potential? That's just non-quantifiable. But yeah, that's the basic gist of any business planning that we have come across.
Right, makes sense. And there's always a debate or discussions going around, say, cost effectiveness or getting the talents, say, offshoring the talents for lesser cost, being cost as a biggest advantage. What do you see is the difference when someone who has never hired before is kind
Hmm.
of exploring hiring, say, from India, and when they come with certain expectations in mind, in terms of, okay, I'll be getting, say, 3x benefits or 5x benefits for a particular skill set. When someone comes with that mindset to hire, how and where do you see that balance is important in terms of value for money with what you're getting at what rate versus the just the blanket cost to look at it that way?
Hmm. Hmm. So let's unpack this a little. Because primarily when someone is looking, or a company, let's say non-Indian company, let's say someone in London, someone in UK, they are now looking at hiring in India. The first question is why? What is the driver? Is cost the only driver? And why is the cost only driver, and why India? Because primarily India, that it was 5 years back, is not the same today,
Yeah.
right? Like even in terms of businesses, SaaS business in UK is not applicable to SaaS business in India. So the first question is why? Why are you hiring in India? Is the cost the only driver? If 4x and 5x is the blanket, or 3x or 2.5x, whatever blanket you're coming to India with is what you're expecting, then there's going to be a slight amount of disappointment. And that
Mhm.
slight amount of disappointment is because that why was not answered properly.
Makes sense. Mhm.
As you can probably end up getting a 10x cost saving,
Yeah.
but what are you actually
Versus what
letting?
you're losing. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
A
So
holistic
so
approach.
that why becomes very critical.
Right. And say, for example, consider me as a newbie to hiring from India. What
Hmm.
type of talent should I expect from India, and what should be my evaluation measures or aspects in that respect?
All right. So if you are hiring from India for the first time, so let's say if you're trying to build team in India, um, I would first of all say, even talent wise, you need to be clear. An internal preparation is necessary. That job description, that, you know, let's be very
It's not a
honest.
standard AI
More than
generated code.
70% of hiring managers copy paste the job description, half from Google, half from previously, hired someone. So that job description is really critical, and I can't emphasize enough on why this job description is critical, because it's for that position, and that position is there because there's a gap in the business today. Right. So it has to be vetted. It has to be aligned with the company strategy, the reporting line, uh, communication, internal communication. Especially if you are hiring in India, what is the growth potential? This this current workforce in India, they don't want to settle for less. They know their potential. They know what's out there. If they don't get it here, they're gonna get it somewhere else. This is how it is, and it's exciting if you really are looking for that kind of talent, because that's India. That is India personified. But at the same time, how are you going to bring them in? How are you going to make them feel like they're a part of you? If you make them
Yeah,
feel like they're India and you are your own company, that's a lost battle even before anything started, right? So first and primarily foremost, it's internal preparation. Prepare to onboard someone from India.
makes sense. Makes so much sense. And even it's also the first glimpse or the first impression of any company or any organization looking to hire for India, where the talents are reading the job description and perceiving something for the
Yeah,
company that whether they wish to join or not. So once that, and also today, just like the job descriptions, many of the resumes or the CVs are also kind of AI generated based on the JD. Uh,
sure.
Having that kind of complex structure in say the whole recruitment industry also makes it even more important to have that authenticated and kind of checked for the realistic points mentioned over there.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
that information itself is then going again to be utilized by AI for the matchmaking and shortlisting, and then kind of make the whole relevancy to the point.
Yeah, yeah. So see, from my perspective, the whole recruitment game is very different today with this introduction of LLMs. People mostly use this ChatGPT. You have Clouder and whatnot. There are 4 or 5 different LLMs that's available out there. Funnily enough, I have come across specifically resume suites. So there's a website called AI High, AYE High. You buy credits, and they do 3 things. They evaluate your resume, how good it is, and what are the key standpoints. Then they shortlist your resume. Will your resume be shortlisted for a job? And third is resume grooming. You paste the whole job profile, the company profile, attach your CV, and it will give you exact suggestions of what to make. How, as an employer, are you going to make sure someone's not come across that? Chances are very low that someone's not come across that. You
Yeah.
open TikTok, you open
So many
Instagram,
tools, resume builder,
it's everywhere.
Copilot. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So thinking that, okay, I've got my JD on, I have internal preparations on, let's go. Not enough. Not enough. There has to be, coming back to your question, if you're a newbie coming to India, primarily from my experience, LinkedIn is not a great place to start. LinkedIn is a good networking site, advertise, but link it back to a platform, literally a recruitment platform that is purpose built to weed out these AI CVs and really pick out skills. Out of these skills, they can actually evaluate, give them performance tests that, okay, Mr. AI ops or software engineer, what are your skills? Okay, it's React. There is 6 questions based on React based. You're a 7-year-old professional. These should be your competency level. How do you do against this? And then provide the employer to me that this person out of these 6 stands high on this. Do you want to interview them? So the refinement process becomes even more difficult because primarily it's time invested. It's time
Yes,
invested, right?
absolutely.
So it's the whole recruitment going to India, getting there, and this is not just limited to India anymore. I mean, I'm seeing this everywhere. It's very easy to have candidates slip through that you just go, okay, how and why am I interviewing you as a hiring manager? You should not be qualified even for stage one. So, but specific to India, the talent's there, and especially to go to India first time with an overview of, oh, I'll LinkedIn myself into India. That's that's a big yeah. Um,
Mm,
you need partners. You need partners who are there, who are doing this well, and actually they themselves are investing in processes, technology, and expansion in India, so that their job is to find you the right candidate, right? So
absolutely.
it's a slight shift on how recruitment works in India in general.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you would agree that we ourselves have built the platform with that exact objective in mind. So, for example, specific to India, uh,
Hmm.
anyone posting a job out there is sure to receive hundreds of resumes for any position. And with that quantum in mind, there is never going to be a lack of applications, but the challenge then becomes to screen out and weed out the irrelevant ones and find the most relevant ones
Yeah.
in that particular position from that bunch, which is a huge time taking and monotonous job. And
Yeah.
what we have tried to do is try to add the layer of AI in these monotonous tasks so that we can then add up or spice it up with our human intervention, our human intelligence of screening the most relevant profiles that get shortlisted with AI, and then getting in touch with them, trying to understand their match or their exact goal match or career match with the position that we are holding today. So, all of these things together definitely help and help us in focusing in the areas that wherever the time is invested, it's for the productive reasons, not for the irrelevant uh, profiles or interviews and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I primarily agree with you, but also there are. This is, let's say, from your perspective, how you see it inside out. From outside in, even though I have been born and brought up in India, I know the local culture, I know the local regulations, certainly more than quite a lot of people. There are still challenges, and it starts from trust, right?
Mhm.
So when I started recruiting in India, I LinkedIn myself way in, which ended pretty badly. I was hiring for a application engineer, and you're not gonna believe about 10% of them were primarily data center technicians, not even remotely relevant. But the CVs crept through. We had about 382 CVs within a week, and I had to close that post.
Yeah.
Now, being a company that is not big enough, I didn't have HR. So me as the managing director and a few other guys, we had to put our focus on this because we are recruiting for someone who is very critical for a critical market. So it requires that kind of importance. So then of course we started looking for different platforms and we came across Uplers. the thing that stuck with us with Uplers was, first of all, there was a consultation. You've given us a JD. Do you really know what you want? Does this tell me? Tell me what you've written. It was almost kind of my interview, right? And that became very clear to me that it's not good enough just to have a good JD. You really need to know what you're looking for, the skills. How do these skills represent internally, right? And then also the evaluation, what you said about the AI. You have seven, six, seven, eight shortlisted candidates who go through the same test, and there is an AI report. But the ability to go into the AI report and personally validate, are there some human elements that AI missed, but we would find a fit? I'm more than happy to spend 3 hours and do it for 8 candidates and actually 382 CVs. So that's just the 50% of the part. The 50% of the part, which is more scary, coming to market like India or a new market, are regulations, your compliances, your employer contracts, your payrolls, labor law, data protection, tax obligation. There's a plethora of this. So if someone thinks, you're gonna steamroll into India, go LinkedIn, sorry, life is much more structured. If you really want quality, you need to invest. This is what I would say.
Right. I also remember certain instances where, just like possibly when there have been requirement understanding calls and you're trying to understand what's the position for what actually will be the role of that position. There are like five people joining the call, and the person at the opposite side is like, okay, am I being kind of interrogated for something weird? But we really want everyone to be on the same page and everything flowing smooth post that. But yeah,
Yeah.
true. Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's like I said, time well invested.
Yes, absolutely, and at the right place. So our investment of time we foresee in getting the feedback from the profile shared, so that the next batch that we are going to share is more refined in terms of the relevancy and so on and so forth. And interviews for us, it's the goal is always the first interview hire. So
Yeah.
whenever we have one particular rejection, it's always like a back grill. What happened? What went wrong? What were the questions asked? What the candidate could have done better? What changes now we need to do in the strategy
Yeah.
for the next time, so on and so forth. Right.
Also,
So coming
one
back,
thing you
yeah.
mentioned, sorry,
Mhm.
one thing you mentioned, quite interesting. It's not just about the roles, actually. What I also found is, so I think we had hired 3 or 4 initial guys to Uplers. The second or the third candidate actually felt like a fit to the company, not just the role. So it's not just understanding what the role requires, but because now you guys know what we did, what kind of phase we are in, what are we looking for. Um, the second guy, I don't want to say his name, still one of the best performers in our global team, and he's a perfect fit. And same was the third guy. So there's that angle as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a very big angle which actually covers the areas which are not black and white in the job description. Uh,
Exactly.
Very standard scenario every one of us faces. When there is a job description, it's different. When there is an interview, there are other aspects that we try to look into subconsciously and consciously, because we have that holistic picture in mind, which may or may not be the recruiter at the other side would be having. But our focus is completely on those gray areas and that information which can feed in the relevancy and the matchmaking. The more it happens, the better definitely the candidate. Right.
Correct.
So again, coming back to the scenario where I am possibly a product startup or a SaaS startup wanting to build a team in India. What are the different ways of hiring from India, or how do I choose which alternative will work best for me? Just like you mentioned, possibly LinkedIn, some other platforms.
Yeah. So without repeating myself, the first thing is know who you are and know what you want. So prep internally. That kind of is always the north star. Um, then understand what are the ways that you've been hiring and what works for you. because when you're hiring a certain way, when you hire 20 people as a global company, you kind of have softly arranged internal evaluation teams or hiring managers of how to integrate into a LinkedIn based hiring or a staffing agency based hiring, right? You don't mean to do it, but when you're small and you go through that process 2 3 times, it becomes a muscle memory. So you need to know what have you done before and why are you structured in the way you're structured. Now, specifically in terms of what are the ways to hire from it, India, you have job boards, plenty of job boards. You have Monster, you have Naukri, you have LinkedIn. There is Indeed who started coming into India. There are tons of other job boards that are specific to India. But that's almost I always go back to saying it's kind of a marketplace. It's a great strategy in the marketplace if you have your own hiring function in India. If you have a hiring function outside India trying to hire in India, please, this is not going to work. Yeah, I mean, again, the muscle memory. The
So
second
I
is,
think, sorry, yeah.
sorry, yeah, no, please.
I was also adding many times we have seen successes in places where there are anchors who are placed, say, in the global offices, who have certain experience and exposure to Indian marketplace, how the talents work here, what's the ecosystem, what's the culture here, who can then consult back to their teams and kind of navigate that cultural gap of the expectations when hiring from India as well. I think more successes are in those areas.
Correct, absolutely. And like you said, if I'm a SaaS, a product, or an AI company that's about 20, 50, 100 people, I'm not going to have that. Because I've just built a company around the most requisite functionals to ship an MVP out, ship my product version 1.0 out. I have just achieved my go to market or market validation of the product. I'm not going to have that breadth of people who are going to have that cultural affinity to India who been there, done that. Very rare, right? So keeping that in mind, you have the recruitment, let's say job boards, then you have the recruitment and staffing agencies. Now, these recruitment and staffing agencies, or let's say, I kind of mix them with outsourcing agencies as well. They're slightly different, but not too different. Because at the end of the day, they have a pool of people that they have shortlisted, and they are kind of matching this. It's an outsourced Tinder service for hiring. I myself am not swiping left and right. Someone said, I know what you want. Someone said, I know what the market is. Let me match it. It's a CMAT kind of a setup, right? And that's again, there's a time and place for that. There are certain skill sets that fall into that. If you're hiring en masse blue collar jobs, this is a perfect place for you to be, right? Because there's low cost, high amount of skills. The skill set gap is very little. You know what you're looking for, and you get what you pay for. But again, coming to the whole product side, platforms are what's critical. Platforms, because platforms gives you that human element. They understand you. They question on your hiring. They know what phase of the company you're in, what are your internal processes, and they take responsibility of shortlisting people with a science behind it. It's not a feeling, it's not a quick match. Like you said, there's a whole AI report that comes out. And me as a hiring manager, now I know for a fact that this person has ticked off these boxes, they've done these exercises, this is the report card, this is the video analytics, and I can go into it and look and say, wow, okay, fine. And not just that, now I have a candidate. Let's have an interview. I have an interview. I finalized. I can go to the platform and say, do you outsource compliance for me? First 5 people, can you do the payroll for me? First 5 people, can you find an alternative for me so that I can hire them without actually setting up my business? This is very critical. And for me, even today globally, we are 100 people.
Mhm.
I take this approach. I take this approach because this allows me to scale. I have basically, from a cost perspective and time perspective, I don't know how many people Uplers have today. What's your strength of the company? 100, 200?
150 in Uplers,
I have
and across the
150.
place now it was around 1500. Yeah, sorry.
I have 150 people working for me.
Yeah.
This is the power, right? So I would always say for this size of the company, platforms has to be the first go to.
Great. All right. And how fast one can expect to hire? What is the ideal time to start, rather?
So the ideal time to start, I mean, again, everyone's got their different hiring strategies. Um, Normally, what I have found most valuable, and because I work with platforms, is understanding what the business projections are. So I know I've had numerous amount of meetings with uplist teams where I'm projecting, this is my business, this is where I'm going, and in next quarter, in next 6 months, in next 18 months, these are the skills that I'm going to be looking for. So again, 100 people, 150 people working in the background based on my strategic direction, and when that time hits, if and when I'm ready, there is a shortlist. There is somewhat of a fit. I have to get ready with my JD and all the internal prep, and off we go. I think the fastest that we have hired, the turnaround time has been 3.5 to 4 weeks from saying let's go to the final interview and taking them on board.
Right. Perfect. And in this journey, how did you land on Uplers, or how did you find Uplers platform?
um, I wish I could say I was the one who found Uplers, but it wasn't. So primarily I was finding a lot of good skills, but I wasn't finding the right people. If you get what I mean, there's a subtle difference, right? Building a team for the next 5, 10, 15 years, I need the right people. Um, so India is having this massive startup boom era. My thought process and my experience in UK, Europe, and US has been that when a startup boom exists in a country, it's a boom of an ecosystem. It's not just that the financial startups are going to go absolutely nuts and all the startups are going to be at the
All the
back.
corresponding ecosystem.
Exactly. So banking on that ecosystem, I basically had a couple of us, me and my then colleague at that time, we had to sit down. How are these startups hiring these people? There are 6 people, 7 people working in a startup. I'm pretty sure people exist out there who themselves are startup, who would want to help startups find the right people. Let's go and start asking people. So I was part of at that point I was part of a VC accelerator based in Bangalore. So I started asking around different founders, different communities, different companies. I was part of NASCOM, and I had about 5 or 6 companies that were given to me that these guys are what you need to look at. Out of these 5 or 6 companies, we got in touch with every one of them, and I told my colleague that I want to go with the first person that sends me a personal email, not a box standard response. And it was from Uplers. So then we went with Uplers. Because your guys' email came, hey, I'm this, I'm that, I've looked on your website, looks like a great company, let's have a chat. So I told my colleague, let's go with them because this is what we are looking for. So that was kind of the whole journey and differentiator.
Amazing. I hope you consistently got that personal attention.
Oh yes, oh yes, I can
Right.
yes.
And as you mentioned, there were like 5 to 6 companies, and of course, this would have started the engine to go with Uplers, but what exactly was the differentiating factor, or rather, to reframe it, I would say, what was the most beneficial aspect of the whole hiring process with the Uplers, from say starting to sharing the profile to interviewing and the final closures?
So, honestly speaking, after this experience of, let's say, Uplers reaching out to us in a way Uplers did, we only had a second company that came through and did that. So we had gone with both the companies, but the main primary reason to go with Uplers was, first of all, the platform demo that you guys gave. That was, I was not expecting that. I was definitely not expecting the platform demo. It was phenomenal. And the second company had a kind of platform, but it was almost something that I've always seen. It wasn't anything different. It wasn't, maybe the back end engine would have been different, but for me as a hiring manager, for me to interact with candidates even before I've spoken to them, that ability wasn't there. Second was, like I said, the relationship management. The relationship management was quite big, because within the first email, after the first email, within 24 hours, I had 3 or 4 LinkedIn requests, bang, 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 right after that. I could see people that went to my profile, and I knew what was gonna happen next.
Yeah, it's not
So,
just
so
five, six people on call, but also online.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that was the second thing. The third thing was the reviews. So the reviews, um, looking at the employees or looking at people in general, it was pretty clear that there is something more than just a recruitment platform to others, and we were keen on exploring this. Like, what is it? What can they offer that we are not figuring it out anywhere else? And the final one was price. Not just price, but the flexibility. So it's kind of a no win no fee kind of a thing. Um, and even without no win no fee, Uplers was willing to invest their platform with me and my team even before I hired someone. There was no kind of a big overarching retainer, and these were, let's say, the 4 topics um, that kind of kicked it off. When the first few candidates came on board, it was pretty clear that, okay, we need to stick with others.
And I also feel the key to it all lies in the gist. So the way we all have been kind of working or kind of are working together, it's always that fire for solving the problem that we always enjoy. So it's more than anything else. I hope no one else is hearing that, but more than the business, it's always that kick you get, or that satisfaction you get, that okay, finally I was able to solve that problem where 100 other people couldn't. So I think that's something that binds all of these simple little things together.
But you see, the not the irony. Well, you call it irony in what you just said. We started this conversation exactly with the same point. It's not about just doing a business for the sake of the business mechanics. It's for a bigger goal. It's for that value. And what you said is 100 people couldn't solve that problem, and I take pride in solving that problem. That's an identification of the business done properly in a long term. So, and it filters through in different ways. It filters through in different ways.
So true. And yes, I think that's about it. Thank you, Deep, for sharing your experiences and tips on hiring from India. But now it's also a time for a short rapid fire. There's a surprise for you, and it's a fun bite. So you'll get 5 seconds to answer each of the questions and say whatever comes to your mind. Nothing right, wrong, or right.
Wow.
It's a fun
Okay.
rapid fire. Right?
Fine.
Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, what's your biggest nightmare when it comes to hiring? Any instance that you recall?
A superstar versus a team player.
Mhm. And share the funniest interview experience that you have had while hiring from India. Funniest.
All right. The funniest has probably been best hire that I ever had. Um, the guy turned up late to the interview. Um, I asked him why was he late, and primarily the most honest answer I got was I had just read the time wrong. I was traveling the week before. I came home, did not reset my watch. I had ordered food. The food was on its way, so I was like, let me just eat and go if the interview goes well.
That's how important
Alright,
the job is to you.
thanks for the honesty. I would have fed you if you came here, but fine, fine. Let's no, yeah, that was one of the funniest bits. But then, of course,
Mhm.
we've been working together for years now.
Yeah. And top three tips for other companies hiring from India?
Platform: India is not a BPO; it's a global hub, and do it fast and win.
Okay. Top three for managing the teams in India.
Be hands-on. Communicate clearly what is required from them, and make sure they are part of the global team and not a Indian team.
And last but not the least, the Desai. What's next from here for you?
Ho ho ho! This is a $1 million question. Honestly speaking, I don't know. So of course, I'm looking for my next challenge with 15, 16 years of experience in deep tech, startups, scale ups, spin offs. I've seen pretty much everything there is to see in the IoT tech field. And yeah, I'm looking for the next challenge. If that comes in terms of working with someone, a company that's established, looking to grow, I'll be more than happy. Or tomorrow, if I wake up with a eureka and start working on it myself, you never know. But definitely, that's the short-term, medium-term goals for me for now.
Right. Yep. Perfect. Thank you, Deep. Thank you for your thank you now. Anything
Absolutely.
else that you want to add as a, just like a last note before we see off?
Huh. Anything that I want to add as a last note? I think we've covered most of it. I think we've covered most of it. The whole, let's be very honest, the whole thing about hiring from India has had a paradigm shift in the last 2, 3 years, and I can guarantee it's going to change in the next coming 2, 3 years, where the most potential workers of this country are moving towards entrepreneurial mindset. It's going to be very challenging for companies to actually retain talent, excite them, motivate them. So the last thing I would like to add is, if you're looking at India, if you're hiring from India, make sure you look at these talent through entrepreneurial lens and not through a 9 to 5 workers lens. If you do, don't be surprised.
Yep, absolutely. All the best as well for your entrepreneurial
Thank you very
journey.
much, Reshma. It was great speaking with you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, and good luck. Speak soon.